All right, and we are live. Thank you for tuning in to the Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club, where we seek to liberate African minds with one unit of work at a time. Our current text is The Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson. Today, we are discussing chapter 14, Race and Economics. All right, so last week, we completed chapter 13, which is entitled The Financial Corporate Elite, the New World Government. And we discussed the world ascendancy of private capital, the private financial corporate complex, which he calls government, the Federal Reserve, and also the tyranny of free market. As Dr. Amos Wilson, he got across to us that there's no such thing as all of the markets that we have are owned and controlled by particular classes. And so we talked about that. And I'm also known, well, my name is Dr. Oya, legal name Dr. Deanna Bailey, and I greet you with, which is a universal greeting of honor and respect towards others. Sister Camille, please introduce yourself. I know that usually we have a panel of people today, but I know some of the brothers are a little bit busy. I spoke to Brother Shesmu, and he said he would be tuning in. Brother Impu said he would be tuning in, and Brother Tawola said that they will also be tuning in. So they're probably running a little bit late. Listen, our great sister, our queen, Sister Alima Njai. She's on the road right now, coming back from an event that was held down in South Carolina. And so she's on the road with her family right now. So she may be tuning in. She may not be tuning in. Camille, introduce yourself to the viewers, and yeah.
Peace, family. My name is Camille Gaynor Jones, and it's an honor to be a part of the RAM Book Club. This is an incredible discussion, and Dr. Amos Wilson left us a powerful blueprint and a way to get us out of some of the circumstances that we find ourselves in here in America for the last 400 years. And but again, it's an honor to be here with the panel. And I am a professional drummer, teach music history, and do lectures as well. And we're gonna get into it.
Guess it's probably gonna go quick since it's just the two of us, It usually is. No, you froze a little bit, but it might be on my end.
Or is it me?
On my end, sis, because sometimes I don't know what's going on with my internet around here. So it might be me, it might be you, who knows. See, Sister Alima, normally she's like, yeah, it was her. She'll be able to tell me whether it's you. She's normally the balance in that situation. But the discussion should go quick. It's only the two of us. But let's get ready to rock and roll. So first page 307. I want to go from page 307 to page 329 tonight.
Yes.
All right. Do you want me to start it off, or do you want to start it off, sis?
You can start it off, because I got some other stuff highlighted on the other page, on the 308, 309.
Okay, cool. So I'll start it off, and then I'll let you take over. At page 308. So I totally understand why you don't have anything highlighted at page 307, because Dr. Amos Wilson has emphasized time and time again throughout his book that an economic system is a social system. Okay, so economic system is a system that is predicated on social relationships. And that is what this first paragraph fundamentally says. So I'll read it. He says, an economic system, like any other social system, is fundamentally founded on dynamic, organized, and persons and between communities of persons. All right. So a lot of times we say, oh my goodness, why don't we think to buy black? Right. Well, there's a number of reasons why we don't think to buy black, or why we don't buy black. But self-hatred is also one of those major factors, right, as to why we don't support each other. Because if you can condition a people to hate themselves, why would I want to spend my money with you, Sister Camille, if subconsciously I hate you? I hate myself, right? So subconsciously, that means I hate my sister. right? So why would I then want to turn around and spend my money with you? And then not only that, we're conditioned to spend our money with alien merchants, right? So anyway,
right.
White
man's ice is colder syndrome.
Absolutely. And so he drives home the point that an economic system is built on social relationships. So he says an economic system does not come into existence because of the mere presence within a group or between groups of individuals or classes of individuals who possess or control commodities, items of use, value, money, and various sources which other members or classes of persons may desire to possess or utilize. He said, while such conditions are necessary for the evolvement of an economic system, they are not in themselves sufficient to bring into functional existence. In order for an economic system to evolve within a group, members of that group must choose to enter into ongoing, organized social relations of exchange with each other based on a complementarity or mutuality of interests, purposes, values, tastes, means of productions, and a functional level of trust and fidelity. Sufficient to develop an economic system are generally and best achieved within a group which shares a common ethnicity, group, or national identity, especially if based on shared gene pool, a shared history, set of experiences, customs, traditions, language, values, mythology, and culture. All right. So basically, Dr. Amos Wilson is saying here that an economic system is based on social relations. B, he's saying that just possessing and controlling commodities will not bring about an economic system. He's saying that there are other things that play a factor in bringing about an economic systems. And those things are, he said, ethnicity, values, shared history, taste, means of productions, right? Mutual interest.
Right.
So those are the things that will bring an economic system into fruition. So let's move forward, sis, with the next page.
Okay, I have highlighted on page 308, the second paragraph.
Yes, sis, do me a favor, read that entire paragraph, because that was very powerful.
I have the whole thing. Oh,
that was a very powerful paragraph. Read the entire paragraph, sis.
Economic system is fundamentally a social system, a system of social relations. An economic system cannot exist prior to or apart from a system of social relations. The products, goods, and services which characterize a social system, the allocation, distribution, use, ownership, symbolic value, and associations with social status, power, and privilege are socially determined and ultimately derived from the nature of social relations which define that system. When the members of a society accept the social relations which characterize its economic system, they become subject to the power differentials and arrangements those relations create and sustain. These socially created and sustained power differentials and arrangements tend over time, and due to concerted propaganda and other effects put forth by those who benefit most from the system, to appear to the members of that society to be autonomous and natural. So this is like an organic thing that happens between groups of people that, for their own survival. When this occurs, habituation, force of habit, among certain potentially powerful groups in that society, social relations, this particular economic system and the system of social power derived therefrom. Even when that group is being victimized by those social relations and the economic and social power systems they sustain. White capitalism, mistakenly referred to as mere capitalism, is a system which exploits and victimizes Blacks. Their situation if they transform the nature of the social relations and consequently the nature of property and power relations which characterize white capitalism. Black capitalists of any significance. It's an instrument of white supremacy and domination of blacks. It is important that we understand the social relations that define white capitalism are the sources of its power.
Sis,
man,
you know what was very profound to me?
Crazy.
Sis, you know what was very profound to me when he said that these socially created and sustained power differentials and arrangements, he said, tend over time, right? With the help of concerted propaganda. He said to appear to the members of that society to be autonomous and natural. You know, right. I thought that when I grew up, you know, I grew up in Baltimore County, but my grandma had a house in Baltimore City. And I honestly thought, sis, that my cousin and I, they used to, okay, let me back up. I grew up in Baltimore County. My grandma had a house in Baltimore City. When I would go over to my grandmother's house on the weekends and sometimes during like spring break or Christmas break or during the summer, we would always walk down to a store on a corner. And that store was owned by Koreans. And I remember when we got older, the Koreans, I remember seeing like their children in the store, and their children grew right up with us. And then after a while, their parents retired and the parents passed the store down to those children. Anyway, I thought it was almost natural, sis, to spend my money with those people every day. Like I thought it was natural that, when I go up the street, because around the corner from my grandmother's house, there was also another cleaners. There was a cleaners that's owned and operated by Asians. So sis, I honestly, as a young black girl growing up in Baltimore, I thought it was natural to spend your money with Koreans.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me, sis? Can you hear me, sis? I hope it's not me. Sis, can you hear me?
You're Sister, breaking up, sis.
I'm breaking up. Can you hear me? Sister Camille, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, you broke up. You were like, I didn't hear. I missed the whole thing for the time once about the parents passing down the businesses to their children.
Oh, wow. So you didn't hear. Okay, so I was just basically saying, sis, that I thought it was natural to spend my money with Koreans, because, like, in Baltimore City, the Koreans owned the majority. They own all of the businesses in our neighborhoods. So I thought it was natural to spend my money, with Koreans at the cleaners, at beauty supply stores, at convenience stores. I almost thought that it was natural to do these things, sis. And that was the point that I was bringing home. That sometimes when over time, when we develop these social relations, we almost think that it's normal. You know what I mean? When in actuality, it's not.
Yeah, I was fortunate to grow up in the tail end of when black people owned all the businesses. Like, I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, and all the stores, the supermarkets, and everything were owned by black people. And then black people started being able to get jobs in the city, and in corporate America, and so they kind of but then the Koreans and people like that started coming in. But originally, all the merchants in my neighborhood were black. My father even owned a grocery store, corner store.
Oh, wow. Yeah, in Baltimore City now. We starting to take it over in Baltimore City, with bookstores and restaurants and food carryouts and stuff like that. But we're starting to take it over. But growing up, in Baltimore City, especially over in East Baltimore, a lot of the carryouts, fast food carryouts, were owned by Koreans. Convenience stores, beauty supply stores, cleaners, and what so have you, were owned by Koreans. But you grow up in that sort of environment, and it becomes normal.
Uh-oh. Okay, you back.
Okay, I said it becomes like normal to you to spend your money with foreign people. I just want to say peace to Brother Tawola, who just joined us. And peace.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Who just joined us. Peace and power, brothers.
Hello, sisters. How you feeling?
We're feeling okay on page.
Can you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear, brother.
Great, because as soon as I try to sign on, my computer wanted to update. So I tried to go to my phone, but I'm on computer now.
Off the automatic update.
Excellent. Yeah. Brother Travis, can you hear us?
Yes, sister, I can hear you. I was in the in the on the YouTube's chat there. I wasn't able to get in there first. I finally got in. It looks like I had something going on with my firewall, but I finally got in.
Okay, brothers. I just wanted to acknowledge
you all.
We're on page 308 at the bottom, going into ethnic, cultural identity, and economics. And like Sister Camille said, this entire chapter was a very, very, very deep, very informative chapter, man. Very eye-opening. But anyway, so we're at identity. And in a previous chapter, I believe it was either in chapter 3 or chapter 4, Dr. Amos Wilson tells us that identity is a cultural product. All right. So anyway, he begins the section with saying identity is the social and personal outcome or product of an historical or experiential process during which new or habitual responses are acquired and existent repertoires of behavior are modified as a result of subjection to direct and indirect social conditioning or learning paradigms or schemes. So generally, the operational conditioning and learning experiences which interactively combine to produce identity are provided by the primary group or culture. All right. So basically, identity is a product of your culture. Identity is achieved when, as a result of having undergone an identification process, the individual or group comes to perceive himself or itself as possessing a unique personality or character of being a person or group in his or its own right, as being able to answer to his own satisfaction the question, who am I? Who are we? What am I? What kind of people are we? What do I do with my life? And what do we do with our existence? And see, that is where, this is what I feel like, sis. I feel like our educational process, and Dr. Naeem Akbar has mentioned this in his book, Know Thyself, that your identity should come with your educational process. So whatever educational process that you undergo, that should produce your identity. Okay, it should transmit an identity to you. Anyway, he says, and I'm moving on. He says, identity, like personality, to the extent is a cultural product. It's the incarnation of cultural ideology, ecology, and practice. It's culture made flesh. So your identity is culture made flesh, experienced and perceived as emotional, cognitive, and behavioral manifestations. It's an instrument used for the expression of cultural power and is an instrument of personal, group, and cultural survival, accomplishment, and continuity. A group identity exists when each member of a group or significant majority of them perceives his or her membership in that group and his or her sharing of its defining characteristics, its defining values, attitudes, and behavioral tendencies as the most important or the primary defining characteristics of himself or herself as an individual. I thought that was a very powerful statement.
Yes.
And it made me think of us and how we don't really have a group identity. You know, you have some people who identify, with themselves as being Moors. Some of us are, if you ask them what is their identity, they'll say, I'm a Hebrew. Some of us will say, I'm African centered. Some people will say I'm a Christian. Other people will say I'm a Muslim. What is our group identity? And remember, he said that the group identity exists. He said when a significant majority of them, right, of the members perceives his or her membership in the group and his or her sharing of its defining characteristics, right, its values, attitudes, and behavioral tendencies. But when I look around at Black folks, we don't have an identity, a group identity. You know what I mean? I have buddies who say, I'm an American. I'll say, you're an African. They say, no, I'm not an African, I'm an American. So, I think that's a huge part of our problem. And that's why we operate as what Dr. Amos Wilson calls a diffused tribe, because we do not have a group identity.
What's the solution for that, Dr. Maat?
African-centered education.
In what capacity for it to be a majority of us to accept that identity? It has to, that's been the number one issue that we have been faced, to try to get that group unified to have that African-centered consciousness, education.
Absolutely.
So what would be one of the tactics for us to infuse that in our circles and thus far?
You know, bro, that I'm a huge proponent of African-centered education. And I believe that African-centered education will cultivate a group identity. Now, if you're asking me how to get adults, you know, to identify how to go and change an adult's mind, I'm not sure, bro, what the answer would be or what the solution would be to that. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know, because with adults, I mean, I think it's hard because a lot of people are comfortable in their ideology. You get what I'm saying? And they're comfortable believing whatever they believe in and identifying with whatever they're identifying with. But
right.
you know,
cover the children.
Yeah, to me, in order to cultivate that group identity, I would want to start with the babies, and the medium or the tool that I would use or suggest would be African-centered education.
So would you agree that with the African-centered education starting off with our babies, this process we may not be around for? Absolutely.
We may not be around to see it.
Right. And you do have to give the parents something, because if you're trying to build the children up, That's right. And you got a whole nother message in the home.
Yeah, then you have conflicting. Yeah, Dr. Naeem Akbar talks about that in his book Nation Building. He was saying how, you know, the families and the families in the school have to be on one accord, or else there's a disconnect. So he said the culture and ideology of the homes have to be aligned with the culture and ideology in the schools, or else there will be a disconnect.
Movements can also change that also, though. If you think about, we once called ourselves coloreds. We once called ourselves Negroes. In the 60s, they promoted Black Power. And so we began to identify ourselves as Black. So movements also, cultural movements, confronting the system, and charismatic leaders beginning to redefine, you know, certain issues and challenging, you know, the dominant majority perception can also change. That happened through the Black Power movement.
That's a good point you make, Brother Travis.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of things that we've created, and a lot of things that we do the same, regardless of whether or not we've actually you know, put a name to it or whatever. But there's things that we naturally do as a group of people, you know, amongst one another. But we're bombarded, you know, by propaganda, and you know, we're always you know.
Is she breaking up, or is it me?
Am I messed up again?
We got you.
Can you hear me?
You back?
Yeah, we get you now, sis.
You ended off at propaganda.
Yeah, we're bombarded with the propaganda of anti-Blackness.
Yeah.
So anytime we speak about
lost again.
So, Brother Travis, you're saying that a cultural movement.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
and we have to be like, we don't care what other people think. And so those people that come on here, you know, talk to us about you know, not doing for self, but they come from groups of people that do for self.
Exactly.
So it's, you know what I'm saying? It's like, how you gonna tell Black people not to do that when that's how your whole community operates?
Right. And Brother Travis made a good point about the movements, because if you follow the movements, you do see that the name change and the consciousness change based off that. The last big movement with the Black Power was when, I think the term came from, did it come from Stokely Carmichael?
Yes. He said we need Black Power.
Kwame Ture. So he came up with the Black Power, and then you had Jesse Jackson, who came with the phrase, if I'm not mistaken, African American.
Right.
No, we just recently found out we thought that he introduced the term African American in 1988, but they found a publication dated back to the 1700s where someone in an article published the term African American.
Okay.
I can send you guys that information.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But let's look at the way he popularized it for our eyes,
right,
in the 80s, because that brought off a whole new era. Think about that. That's the Cosby era. That's that whole mindset of capitalism went back into play. gaining the American dream went back into play, you know, and us probably being rocked back to sleep came back into play. So from that important movement that preceded which was our Black Power movement, you know, so we probably was rocked back to sleep around that introduction of the African American phrase from Jesse and the Klan.
Somebody in the chat says just changing names isn't going.
Couldn't hear her. She breaking up.
Changing names don't do what?
Doesn't organize groups into nations.
Yeah,
I agree with that person.
I would agree.
But let me ask you this. So, Brother Travis, you said that Brother Travis,
you have to put a plan forward. You know, you have to.
Yeah, she's breaking up.
But with that, even with the name, with that name came an agenda, correct?
Exactly. So you have to have an agenda with the name change.
So that, but with Black Power came an agenda.
Yes, it did.
Right.
Yes, it did.
Exactly.
The names changed, but they didn't scream out Black Power. They had an agenda.
And they had movements that rose up. The Black Panthers, the Black Liberation Army. You had the even other groups, the the American Indian movement. You had all kinds of people emulating the Panthers. Program.
Exactly.
Name change. Name change is just what it is, but something got to come behind it, and I believe those movements had something behind it, or we wouldn't be talking about them today.
But hold on, let me ask you.
You gotta have a whole formula.
But hold on, let me ask you guys this, because Brother Travis brought up this point. He said that a cultural movement, would he said that would help. That would help cultivate a group identity. What do you think, Brother Travis, will be the catalyst of a cultural movement?
It always happens with events. If you look at the civil rights movement, Black people got tired collectively of the disrespect. The people say that Rosa Parks started the spark, but my grandparents, and I'm quite sure many of your grandparents, went through segregation and the degradation of that. For years and years, people collectively were experiencing these particular things. They might not be able to articulate it, but on a daily basis, they were being disrespected. The Black Power movement happened because the youth got tired of the nonviolent struggle and how Dr. King's movement was not aggressive enough in change. So when Stokely articulated, we need Black Power, I mean, that raved all the way around the United States. Everybody was putting their fists up in the air. They was talking about Black Power. Movements happen because people already are internalizing certain things. They might not be able to articulate it, but when something occurs, somebody articulates something to speak to that spark, that can create a movement like Stokely did.
Okay, so you think that it would be, a cultural movement would spark out of some event? But I can't help, brother, but to think what event, because I mean we've had.
I don't know any. I don't know any right now. I agree with you.
No, I know that's what I'm saying, brother. We had, we had Trayvon Martin, we had Tamir Rice, we had Michael Brown, we had Philando Castile, we had Oscar Grant, we have Sandra Bland. So obviously, police killing us. Well,
it took. Look
how long segregation.
Combination of Rosa Parks and other people not wanting to stand.
And look how long.
That's our movement, and it's going to take a group to take that by the hand and organize it and say, you know what, now we got to go against this system again, because each thing that you just explained or just said was based off from the police brutality once again. Right. So that's something that we got to look and say, hey, now we got to start attacking the system. We have to start doing more than just asking. And every movement, in some sense, say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's start marching. Let's start fighting. I haven't seen this yet, and now in this age, but I've seen every movement stand up and fight. So
look how long Jim Crow lasted, though. Look how long Jim Crow was in existence.
Like over 100 years.
Right,
yeah.
Over
15 years.
That's right. That's right. So it's incubating. I really believe that.
Oh yeah, I think it definitely is also, brother.
I agree with that.
With these new tax cuts, they're going,
it's going to change. It's going to change very much. So
All right. So let me read the bottom of page 309. It says group identity as an adaptational instrument provides the means by which the members of a group, while under the influence of a shared sense of belonging and unanimity, rationalize, regulate, and systemize their emotional, cognitive, attitudinal, and behavioral relationships with each other so as to achieve individual and group goals with maximum efficiency. So it is our group identity that permits us, right, to achieve our individual and group goals with maximum efficiency. So, you know, I can't help but to think about the 1804, the Haitian Revolution, right? They had a group identity. Do you remember in the video, Professor James Smalls, Dr. Lenny Jeffries, and the two female historians, and even the two musicians, you had Wyclef, and I forgot the other brother's name, but he was saying that they united under the banner that they were African people trying to get free. So that was their group identity. Do you guys recall that in 1804?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So they were able to achieve, they were able to achieve their goal, right? Let's see, as Dr. Amos Wilson says on page 309, once they united and joined forces under a group, once they had or obtained a group identity. So moving on to page 310, I'm at the top. Sister Camille, do you want to read that, or one of the brothers, do you want to read this?
All right, you say 310. Let's start off with first paragraph. The value of group identity to both individual and group survival to success is obvious when one observes the distress, the vulnerability, loneliness, and aloneness, perhaps victimization or subordination, relative powerlessness, emptiness, intrapsychic and intragroup conflict, or oblivience of those individuals or groups who possess too little or no group identity. That's how it describes us right now. Identity,
right,
as a personal or collective phenomenon, is as much, if not more, a political economic entity as it is purely social and psychological entity. As a political economy, identity is an organization of interests, tastes, desires, passions, ideals, motives, values, knowledges, abilities, skills, and etc. The pursuit, satisfaction, exercise, and realization of which helps to maintain the social power relations, social prerogatives, and the integrity of social, political, economic systems which characterize a particular culture and its status quo. Thus, in both the commercial and non-commercial sense of ethno-cultural group trades in its identity, this is the case because the individual personality is formed and reflects the political, social, economic character of the culture and society into which he is born and nurtured. Yeah, we assimilation basically, right?
Absolutely. That's, he's, you know, go ahead, brother. I had that actually.
I'm sorry. You want to say something, Dr. Maat?
I was saying I had this whole page, like literally this page highlighted.
Right.
Like a flashing light there.
Yeah, man. That was deep. That our personality is formed. He said our personality is formed by, he said, and reflects the political, social, economic character of the culture and society in which we are born.
And Dr. Maat, if you take 1 second to explain that, that's why it's so important for African-centered education, because if it's not given to our children, and we learn about American history at pre-K,
come on,
all the way to 12th grade, all we think is about this country. We don't think we don't even want anything else coming in our minds, because we will consider that to be foreign.
Right.
So we've been assimilated in these indoctrination camps from beginning.
Right. That's what a school system is, you know, the first indoctrination.
Then,
you know, when they have you drawing the little turkeys and whatnot, when coloring books and
right.
You know, that's all indoctrination, you know.
When Dr. Maat made that point, you mean how are we going to get through to the adults? That's like pulling all your teeth out. That's a hard task. That is a painful
Hey,
text.
man, they gonna come with it. We just pray on it.
Oh,
They gonna hit you with all of that.
that's why the question I made the question was, it may not be in our lifetime, but we have, and I agree with you, Dr. Maat, we have to start off with the kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree.
And I agree with you and Sister Camille in that that school is our first formal. That is our first formal indoctrination process, or our introduction. I ain't gonna say introduction. It's an indoctrination boot camp. So that's our first formal. What am I trying to say, Sister Camille? It's our. I don't want to say it's our introduction, but that's where our first formal indoctrination process begins with school. And
that's like
the
ground zero.
And I think that parents, when we send our children to school, we don't understand that the educational process is very complex. You know, when you talk to the average parent, they say average parent, they'll say, well, I'm sending my child to school to go get an education. And you say, well, what is an education? And they'll tell you that it's something that we need. You know, if you want to get ahead in the society, you need education.
Or what they
want to become.
No
one understands. Right, or what they want to become, but people don't understand that education is a very complex process. Your child is not just going to school to learn skills. They're being enculturated, they're being socialized, their personality is being molded, you know, their values are being shaped. I mean, a lot of things go into the educational process that we don't think of as parents. You know, a lot goes into that. Even down to the fact that I was looking at some statistics on on educators, and I found out, I was looking at the Bureau, I forgot what it was, but it's online. If you just Google, you know, teachers by racial group or something like that, it'll pop up. But the statistics say that 81% of school teachers in America are in between the ages of 30 and 39. So these are the people that are in there educating our children. So let's think about it. So you go to school, you have white teachers, right? From maybe pre-K to 12th, maybe, you know, and maybe you're fortunate to have some black teachers in between. Okay. Then you look around in your neighborhood, it's being policed by white people, probably the majority. You might have a few black cops. But I heard they're weaning black police officers off the force now as we speak. Your neighborhood is being policed by white folks. Then you go to church, right? And you probably see a white Jesus on the cross, or a white Jesus in your Sunday school literature. And then we have this, then you look on TV, what do you see? And then this dependency mentality that we have, you know. So when you add all of these things together, what do you have? Like, there was an incident in Baltimore that happened a few months ago, and it was two white police officers down on Monument Street, and they were beating the crap out of a black dude. There were black men and women sitting around watching the whole thing transpire. Nobody jumped in it, okay? Out of the blue, who jumps in it and tries to save the black guy? A white boy. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, daggone, you know, this scene was so reminiscent of the plantation days when the master would grab one of us and beat us, and then we would all stand around and watch. And then so
that's deep.
Yeah, so I asked myself, I said, what is it in 2017? Why is it that, you know, they can come into our neighborhoods and beat us? What is the fear? Like, what is the problem? But then I had to think, Whitey has been your teacher, Whitey has been God, Whitey has been your parent, because the dependent relationship that you've had with Whitey, you know. So Whitey is your authority figure because Whitey polices you. So in their mind, they say, I can't attack this person. This is like attacking my teacher, my God, my parent, my authority figure. You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
My judge.
Wow.
That's white mommy and daddy.
Absolutely.
Hey, let me tell you something, because since you hit the nail on the head with this one, this is a short story. I'm gonna do a little framework, and I'm gonna go on, because I won't be too long with it. I was on the playground with my youngest daughter, and we was on the playground, and she saw another classmate. Well, he went to the same school that she went to, a couple grades a little higher, and he said, "Hey, is your daughter in so-and-so class? I said, yes. I don't like her because she was a horrible art teacher. When my daughter heard the teacher's name, she says, Daddy, I don't like him. He talked bad about my teacher. I don't like him. I'm saying, whoa, she protecting and caping already. Let's go. It's just to the point when you realize, you know, he talked bad about my teacher. At that age, you have to understand they're very impressionable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you see it in your own, you got to shake it up.
All right, brother.
Got to shake it up. So that point I want to make, because you hit the nail on the head with that, Dr. Maat. So I wanted to kind of bring that home.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. That's like you said, they're that impressionable. So now, like you said, she wants to protect that teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what would stop her years from now to jump in front of that white woman or that white man and defend? You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying?
I was on the train the other day, and a little kid, a little black boy called his black teacher an African booty scratcher. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I said,
she's breaking up. Sister Camille? Or is it me?
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, did you hear what I said?
That you said someone on the bus called another kid like an African booty scratcher?
Yeah, a little black boy. He called his teacher an African booty scratcher.
Oh my gosh.
I said, young man, that is not something you call another black person. He just kind of looked at me. Nobody said nothing, but I was like, I can just let that slide like that.
Yeah, but
because that's how that thing keeps going. Nobody corrects them.
Absolutely.
Like, where did you learn that kind of language at? You're like 8 years old.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that self-hatred is like, it might be coming right out the womb. Who knows?
Yeah, we're just not conditioned to inquire where we're from. You know, to inquire, learn about, and love where we're from. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Not. And but anyway, let's move on because we still got some pages to cover. So at the bottom of page 310, he says ethnicity, religion, and identity have been the enduring, almost irreducible factors which motivate and sustain a group's social and economic development. Okay, so he said it's ethnicity, it's religion, and its identity. All right, those three, he said, irreducible factors that motivate and sustain a group's social and economic development and the power which it derives therefrom. Even a very cursory review of the history and economic success and power of various ethnic groups in America and the world will corroborate this contention. So he mentions a book called Tribes, How Race and Religion and Identity Determine Success in a New Global Economy, which was written by Joel Kotkin. All right. And Joel Kotkin, he says in his book that if you look at these global tribes, and he's referring to the Jews, the British, the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Indians as global tribes. And he concluded that global tribes combine a strong sense of common origin, right? And shared values. Think about this, Sister Camille, Brother T, and Brother Shamsu. We don't even have a damn common origin. You have the Washita folks over here saying that we are indigenous to the Americas. Mm-hmm. African-centered folks saying that we come from sub-Saharan Africa. You got the Moors saying that we come from Mauritania or Morocco. You got the Nation of Islam saying that we're the large tribe of Sabaz over in Arabia somewhere. I mean,
Asiatics.
We're Asiatics. Like, and I'm so not being funny right now.
That's true. That's true.
So true. So the guy Kotkin, I keep saying Kotkin. I don't know what's Kotkin, but Joel Kotkin, that these global tribes that we see, these you know, articulated tribes, as Dr. Amos Wilson said, page 143. I forgot what chapter that was. He was saying that they have a strong sense of common origin.
Yes.
So they know where they come from. He said, and they have shared values. And I remember we all had a discussion about values back in chapter 3. And we were saying, like, what are the shared values that we all have? And we do share some values. If you look at different Black families, there's some things that we all commonly value. But as I'm just saying, as a collective, what are our shared values? Okay. He said they also have quintessential tribal characteristics and do not surrender their sense of a peculiar ethnic identity, but utilize their historically conditioned values and beliefs to cope successfully with change. All right. So he also argues in his book that although global tribes such as the British and Western European whites and the Japanese possess a different history, he said they all share the following 3 critical characteristics. So can we one by one read the 3 critical characteristics? Starting with you, Sister Camille, number 1.
Okay, number 1, a strong ethnic identity and sense of mutual dependence that helps the group to adjust to changes in the global economic and political order without losing its essential unity.
A global network based on mutual trust that allows the tribe to function collectively beyond the confines of national or regional borders.
A passion for technical and other knowledge from all possible sources, combined with an essential open-mindedness that fosters rapid cultural and scientific development critical for success in the late 20th century world economy.
Sadly, so look at this. They have a strong ethnic identity. They have a global network, right? And they have a passion for, it says, technical and other knowledge, right? And that is what makes these people, these global tribes, successful. All right. So now we're moving on to the next section, Global Economic Network of the Ethnic Chinese. And he begins by saying that the first Asian group to form a truly global ethnic economic network, you know, he said second in size and scope to the Anglo-Americans would be the Chinese. Okay. It was the Chinese. All right. So let's move on to 312.
And I didn't know the Chinese own so much in New York. I'm not from New York. They own a lot in New York, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Manhattan. They got another Chinatown in Flushing.
Mm-hmm.
And now they got one in Brooklyn.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking banks, everything. They back in the day, you know, they used to have all their signs up, all written in Mandarin, and they made them put those signs in English too, because that was becoming too, you know, when you're doing that, you're not allowing outsiders to, you know, do business with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, you got everything written in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you basically taking over, and you don't want outsiders to be a part of your thing.
Right.
So they made them have to make their signs in English as well, because they used to have all their signs up in Chinese.
Wow, that's power.
Yeah, when you drive through there, it's like you in China, and hey, it's crazy. The signs, the businesses, everything. Like
now they mad right now.
Canal Street is another one. You go down there, you get, you know, they have some great massages down there.
You know what, Camille?
You know, the Arabs do that. Now they mad. The government at trying to get at the Arabs in Dearborn, because they did the same thing. You think you in Pakistan, you go to Dearborn, or the Middle East somewhere. They what happened was they stopped doing business with local people who had businesses there, and let them close their businesses. Then they open them up and create, you know, and have an Arab economy there. So they don't even do business with people who create businesses in Dearborn. They stopped doing business with them, let them close down, then they'll replicate it. That's what they were doing in Dearborn. Now that's nationhood though. I give them credit. You know, they buy from their own.
I'm with you.
Yeah, they're all for their.
That's right.
And I don't know. We don't get it. You know, yeah, present that to Black people. They act like, you know. That's racist. I'm like, that's not. We're not even capable of racism. We're the lowest on the totem pole. We don't even have any economic power. What are you talking about, racism?
That's right. They
you don't even know what racism is. If you think practicing group economics is racism, you are sadly do not even understand what goes on in this country and what systematic racism and white supremacy is.
Well, the word racism is thrown around only when they want to make you emotional.
Right.
They throw it around only
to shame black people into,
that's because we only know that definition of prejudice. We don't understand racism and in the order of class, in the order of economics, and groups that keep it away from each other. They only throw it around when they're either being blamed for racism as a counteract. And that's all it is.
That's right. And you guys made a great point when you talked about they have a common ethnic origin. It's Islam with the Arab. They might be Pakistani Muslim. They might be from Iraq Muslim. But it's a common origin to the Prophet Muhammad, who was Arab. And so it's all based on a religion. They have a commonality like y'all were talking about, Dr. Maat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, I want to move forward because I know how we can go.
Right.
Forward. So it says that Cochrana's assessment of growing global economic prowess of the Chinese. So he says that for many generations, immigrant Chinese entrepreneurs have been operating comfortably in a network of family and clan. Keyword, family and clan. Brothers and sisters who are watching our this current discussion, please go back into the archives. Dr. Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power, Chapter 3, where we talk about family and how family should function as a power system, right? So he's saying that, that they've been operating comfortably in a network of family and clans, right? Laying foundations for stronger links among businesses across national borders and Chinese-owned businesses in East Asia, the United States, Canada, and even further afield are increasingly becoming a part of what I call the Chinese Commonwealth. So I want to read this little gray box right here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this word correctly. Kwong Zai says the economic power of social relationships. Power exists in relationships. It has a primary location in the ongoing habitual ways in which human beings relate to one another. All right. Power exists primarily in social relationships and not in isolated exercises. So he says that the ability of the ethnic Chinese to finance their own phenomenal economic growth, development, and prosperity is based on the nature of their social relationships. So it is their increasing economic and social power, whether in the Chinatowns, in cities of the US and Canada, in booming Southwestern Asia, or in the global political economy. Chinese economic power is generated by the structure of a broad social network which defines their culture and community. So if one is to understand and function effectively in China, then he must understand two important concepts. They call it Guangzai or Hotai, right? Guangzai means relationships or connections. Hotai means backstage, as noted by Chen Ning Chu, president, Asian Consultants and Company. So together, Guangzai and Hotai. So one means relationships or connections. And I think the other one means, what does this mean? What's the other one? Hotai means connections and relationships. I'm sorry. So it says, Guangzai says that Guangzai and Hotai refer to an individual's personal influence and power connections. In China, simple merit has never been enough to advance one cause. A highly placed Chinese official once laminated to me, in China, it doesn't matter how many laws and how many righteous, it doesn't matter how many laws and how much righteousness are on your side. Without Guangzai, you have nothing. So they're saying without connections and relationships, you have nothing. He said, even if you are outside the law and there's no righteousness to your position, if you have the right Guangzai and Hotai, you can do no wrong. So anywhere in the world, influential contacts can be your greatest asset. So that goes back to, remember when you're young and your parents tell you it's not what you know, it's who you know. So it's the same concept over here. Chinese people just call it Kwonzai and Tai, right? So they're saying that you need to have connections. You need to know the right person, right? They say even in Chinese culture, you know, knowing the right people is a prerequisite to doing business in Asia, okay? So he goes on to emphasize the important roles of identity and family ties, the important roles identity and family ties play in Chinese society. And right now I'm at the bottom of page 313. It says regional identity. The Chinese recognize a strong bond to village and province. Think about this. We have a strong bond as Black people to streets. And I'm not being smart right now. You know, in Baltimore, and Brother Tia tell you, people had, you know, we have a strong bond to streets, not communities, not villages, streets. Like literally when I grew up over in East Baltimore, my grandmother had a house at the time on Belgian Avenue. And running parallel to Belgian Avenue was Cater, a street called Cater. And then parallel to that street was called Dumbarton. Do you know the brothers on Dumbarton used to beef with the brothers on Cater? And so they would beef and argue and shoot up each other. So we have loyalties and strong bonds to streets, not villages.
Same thing here. Same thing in Detroit.
Yeah, so we don't have a strong bond to villages, you know, or a province saying, okay, you know, Africa or Ghana or Nigeria or, you know, not even just going to Africa, even in the US, just a province or a village. We have bonds, strong bonds with streets, which is crazy to me. So it says that the Chinese recognize a strong bond to village and province, all right? And it says in large cities like Los Angeles and New York, Chinese from the same province or city will settle close together, all right? So let's move on.
And they'll say them people, they'll refer to them, people right around the corner, them people. That's what I couldn't understand it. They'll be right around the corner and they'll talk about these people like they foreigners. Right here in Detroit, they'll say those people. And
you're literally right around the corner from, like you said, we're from the same neighborhood, the same region.
Exactly.
But your brother on the block, you act as if, you know, this brother is from another country or, you know, it's crazy.
Exactly.
All right. So I just want to read this last one and then I'm going to pass the mic. Family ties are all important. It says that family ties are the pillars of civilization. All right. It is these ties that have allowed the people to survive China's seemingly unceasing internal wars that make the Chinese civilization indestructible. So it's your family. It boils down to your family ties. All right. So it says that the nature of the, someone continue. I'm passing it. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it.
Wait, 313?
Top of 314. The nature of social relationships.
The nature of social relationships and connections between Chinese Americans are fundamentally important to the way they organize monetary resources in order to finance their extraordinary economic success in cities like Los Angeles and New York. Chinese social relationships, along with their attitudes toward money and its use, directly affect the nature of credit and finance and how they are used to achieve personal
sister was reading good.
Community.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to skip down to where it says Chinese people do not feel comfortable borrowing.
Yes, that's deep, sis. I had that entire paragraph highlighted. Please read it, sis.
Yes. I'm going to stop from actually running a bank. Actually running a bank in Chinatown is a good news, bad news situation.
Right.
The typical cavalier attitude that many Americans take toward debt. Leverage is synonymous with growth opportunity. Credit cards are a means to buy something now that you could not otherwise afford in Chinese culture. Chinese people do not feel comfortable borrowing. They consider debt a big shoulders, said Miss Min of Chemical Bank. Moreover, added Mr. Ho of Shanghai Bank, there are many alternative sources of funds in Chinatown. Often Chinese businesses can from relatives, he said, and they are usually quite willing to pool their money and open, say, a new restaurant as partners.
See, and that's the key word. that they're willing to pool their money to open up this. So here it is, a banker in Chinatown says, look, we don't give out a lot of loans, but we do give out a lot of savings accounts, right? Because they say that the Chinese people do not believe in debt. Okay, so what they do is pool their money together to open up a restaurant, all right? So it even says here at the bottom, Asian culture is such that family members, friends, and even acquaintances will often chip in to help someone in financial trouble rather than let them renege on their debts. It says, and Chinese people are more likely to assume debt to expand a business that has already been successful, making the loan a better risk for both the borrower and the bank, right? So typically, these people don't borrow from banks. They pool their resources together. Right. They do not believe in debt, and they don't even want their own brothers and sisters to drown in debt. All right, so I thought that was extremely powerful.
That would be a beautiful thing.
But I have to admit, because people say, well, Dr. Maat, if Meltrek episode 1 cost you guys $20,000 and Meltrek episode 2 cost you $20,000, how did you all put up $40,000 for this animation? And that was just on production costs. Let me tell you, I went to, not only did my family members pull our resources together to invest in Meltrek, I also went to people who I graduated from Morgan State University. I went to my colleagues and I said, look, some of my colleagues wrote me checks, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 to produce Meltrek. So Black people have done it. We have done it, but we just need to do it on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? But we're definitely capable of doing it because we did do it at Ed Anime Production.
I mean, that's the same thing.
No, definitely.
Would you consider the same thing as the African American Museum? Has some of the stars pulled together to get that museum built and created? I think it was upward bounds of 20 million. And they got other help, of course, but you said the money is there, but we just have to do it for a cause that benefits our movement.
Absolutely. We got to do it on a, when I say a large scale, we need to do that. That needs to become a part of our culture. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I mean by do it on a large scale. So page 315 says, I'm at the bottom because he's talking about, Asian banking and all of that. So I'm at the bottom. We've learned that marketing to the ethnic communities. Okay, he's talking about marketing to Spanish, Chinese, and Koreans. And it says that they've learned that marketing to these ethnic communities really work. All right. So the primary importance of ethnic identity and consciousness and the types of social economic relationships they engendered are well illustrated by the economic success stories of the ethnic Chinese and other ethnic groups in America. They provide a very valuable economic orientation for the African American community. A radical change for the better in the economic fortunes of the African community requires a commensurate radical change in the nature of the character of the social relationships and connections its members share with each other. For an economic system and the political power it generates are finally founded on the system of social relationships, a community of persons, and that foundational system is but itself the concrete behavioral manifestation of the group identity and consciousness shared by that community of persons. All right. So someone take it from here.
You're it's on 315?
Yeah, I'm on 316.
316, starting from the top. Thus, it should be apparent that the ethnicity plays a central role in the group's economic empowerment. Over the centuries of preeminence of groups as the Babylonians, Egyptians, the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans, Incas, the Mayans, the Aztecs, and ancient Chinese, the Ghanaian, and Islamic empires have demonstrated the economic and political outcomes of a strong sense of ethnic cultural identity. The current economic power of the Europeans, the Anglo-Americans, and other global tribes illustrate the point in the present century. Moreover, the trend toward ethnic nationalism is not decelerating in the age of the global village, This is attested by a recent article published in the Wall Street Journal on June 20th, 1994, titled "The Global Paradox: Growth of Trade Binds Nation." Growth of trade binds nations, but it can also spur separatism. In this lengthy article, which begins thusly, "It's a paradox of global proportions. The closer the trade and technology bind nations together, the bolder the moves to break nations apart." The writer notes the following, and he goes on through the errant predictions. Anything anyone want to add on what I read thus far?
No, I don't have anything.
Right, so
do you have anything?
As we already combined in this page on 316, that we see that when they do bind the culture and their mission, and he gave some examples as you've seen on 315. I'm gonna go to 317 if no one has any objections.
No, not at all, brother.
All right, so we're gonna go talk about the local tribes. I'm in the middle of 317.
Yep.
Economic networks based on ethnicity are not only discernible on a global scale. In fact, local economic networks are the acorns from which global oaks grow. For our purpose herein, local networks may prove the more instructive and pertinent, since our interest is primarily in economic development of the African community in the United States. We are all familiar with the economic and political success stories of various immigrant groups in America who utilize their ethnic identity and consciousness to catapult themselves into national and international fame and fortune. We shall briefly review the visible economic success of recent immigrant groups such as the Indian, the Afghans, and Koreans. Because of their ambivalent relations with the African American community and the wealth they have managed to extract from it, we will review the conscious efforts of Korean Americans to transform their newfound economic success into political power based on their ethnic identity and consciousness. I got a quick question. Now, it seems like all the groups that are mentioned on page 317, one thing they had in common, that they had the African American as customers.
Yep.
Or renters. Or, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
right.
But who does business with us?
Right.
None
of them.
Right. So the thing is, they create businesses and we flock to, or they target. When we create businesses, we have to search for outside assistance. But 9 times out of 10, we look upon ourselves for that help and to thrive the business. So he made a good point here in this part of the chapter. All right, I'm going to the bottom of 317. Anybody want to add anything to that before I start?
It's just amazing to me, like you, just to reiterate
what
you were saying, brother. What it is that look how many groups that come to America who become millionaires off of us. It's like we finance everybody's agenda but ours. I mean, it really ties into what you were saying there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brother Travis. It reminds me.
Yeah, we're not everybody. Come, whatever thing goes.
That's right.
Right.
We're right, not. We have to be more inclusive of ourselves, and you can't just everybody.
Do anybody remember a little Africa that was going to happen in Detroit? It was a proposal. Claude Anderson was part of that program. They were going to put a economic program for businesses to in the African American community in downtown Detroit. Was going to be called Little Africa. the people, the Arabs, the Chinese, the Koreans, all undermine that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, here in Detroit, and try to plead that was reverse racism.
Oh my gosh, when did this happen?
Wow.
This happened in around 2004, 2005. It was called Little Africa. Dr. Claude Anderson was a part of that, trying to get something going here in Detroit. And all those groups collectively came together to stop that program. And they brought in Minister Farrakhan, Kwame Kilpatrick. They froze him up also because he was going to actually try to push it through, but they weren't able to do it. They brought Minister Farrakhan in just to give a speech and keep the people encouraged, but they successfully defeated Little Africa here in Detroit.
Wow.
Yep. And all of those groups
Yeah,
came together.
They will come together on like when that cop shot that kid in the projects here in Brooklyn. The Asian community came out.
They came out and supported them and supported the cop.
The cop. They're like y'all weren't gonna, powers that be weren't gonna make this Asian guy a scapegoat, because basically what they were saying was y'all don't lock up none of these white officers for shooting black people, so you're not gonna lock up an Asian.
They use their political.
All came out, and that's why I don't go to their stores. I don't go to none of them Arabs. I don't go to none of the stores.
Awesome.
First of all, they be jacking the prices up on you, the Arabs stores. Jack the prices up. We got a price on nothing. Like, how much is this? Then they be looking around like, and they pocket the change. It's like we just deal with a lot of predatory people. It's really sad.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the perfect word for them. Predatory.
Predatory.
They are predators. They're predators. That's a very fitting term for them.
That's most definitely. Okay, we're at the bottom of 317, family. The Koreans. A recent Wall Street Journal report noted that the Korean immigrants have built a thriving community of nearly 400,000 in Southern California, the largest concentration of Koreans outside Korea. That's amazing. It further noted that in its population of small business owners, an estimated 1 in 10 Korean American adults owns a business, compared with 1 in 15 whites and 1 in 67 blacks. I'm gonna read that once again. Okay.
Read that again. I have it highlighted.
It says it further noted that its population of small business owners, an estimated 1 in 10 Korean American adults owns a business, compared with 1 in 15 whites and 1 in 67 blacks.
Wow. 67. Oh my goodness.
A very large percentage of Korean business in Southern California are supported by blacks, as they are in many American cities across the country. The riotous reaction of a number of African Americans in Los Angeles, that is around the Rodney King, right? It says there. The riotous reaction of a number of African Americans in Los Angeles, predominantly black South Central District, with a population of 500,000, to not guilty verdict for the 4 police officers accused of beating motorist Rodney King, revealed the amazing degree which the Koreans had come to dominate the economic life of that community. Wow.
So what's go ahead. Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, brother T, I wanted to definitely go over that chart because
I wanted to stop there too, because of basically you see that point was made, revealed the amazing degree to which the Koreans had come to dominate the economic life of that community. And then you see on table 14.1 the damage count of all of the number of Korean American businesses damaged in Los Angeles riots following the Rodney King verdict. Now, these are all the Korean businesses. The auto repair shops, there were 82. Dry cleaners, 95. Electronic stores, 72. Furniture stores, 20. Wow. The jewelry stores, 64. Liquor stores, this is a whopping 220.
20.
Wow. The markets, 314. The swap meets, 385. Restaurants, 106. Clothing stores, 288. Video stores, 43. And you had the others, 546, a total of 2,240 stores. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And so everything happens for a reason, brother. Everything happens for a reason. So this the Rodney King riots, like you said, it allowed us to see how much the Asians truly controlled the economy or the economics in that particular area. You know what I mean? But when you look at the damage count, you get what I'm saying? 2,200 businesses they owned in Los Angeles.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Just say that each of those businesses profited, say, $100,000 a year.
And that's oh my Jesus, that's
little. That's nothing.
Yeah, that's nothing.
You know, that's amazing. Just think.
Absolutely.
And Brother Travis.
At one time, I used to live in Savannah. I went to school out there in Savannah, and the Chu is a Asian Korean family who owns most of the grocery stores. And by accident, I was going out to Tybee Island, and I had forgot something, so I turned around, and I went in this cul-de-sac to turn around. All these big, beautiful houses was in a cul-de-sac, and Chu came out, and a lot of his family was playing in all his yard. They had bought an entire cul-de-sac, and you should have saw these beautiful mansions that they had. It was in the cul-de-sac, and I was just amazed. All of this, they make all that money off black people. All of their grocery stores are in Savannah in the black community, and by accident I found out where they lived and how they lived. Just doing a U-turn, I had to, because the way the streets are, you can go turn in the cul-de-sac and cross back over the highway to get where I needed to go. And by accident I went in their cul-de-sac where their family lived. You should have saw those houses. And I said, man, it just dawned on me, all of their businesses are in the black community, and they just living lavishly off our people. Mm-hmm.
When you have a working class giving you money, you can live real good.
Oh yeah, it would just shock me that day. That day I was just I was real reflective. I'm like, all of this is in the black community. That's when I was coming into consciousness in the 80s, and I was just starting to do some reading. I got out of that athletic, that jock. I was that jock. I was coming out of that. Hadn't read anything, and it just really hit on me how much I really needed to study. How these people are manipulating our people.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Just the number of businesses that they have at this time, it's amazing. 2,240. Well, Brother Mpu, welcome. And are we gonna go?
Hey, family. I apologize for my tardiness.
No problem. You made it.
My family. I miss my family.
We miss you too, brother. You made it. That's all that matters.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Page 318. I'm gonna write down to the second paragraph. Let us look for a moment at the business the Koreans monopolized in predominantly black South Central Los Angeles. The New York Times in November 29th, 1992, reported that there is perhaps no other inner city business that has been as lucrative as liquor.
You hear that? Same thing in Baltimore, T. When you go into the city, there's a liquor store in every
corner.
And then look what he says on page 319, that malt liquor brought in $2 billion in sales in 1991.
Wow.
The industry as a whole, and this is in 1991, $2 billion, and this is at the top of page 319.
Wow. $2 billion in sales in 1991, and the bulk of which 3/4 came from malt liquor. Coke 45.
Wow.
Yep. Old English 800, Cokie 900, all that other crazy stuff.
King Cobra.
Yeah, I made them rich in the 80s off that old English.
That's it, right?
Oh yeah, old English.
Old dog.
Yeah, I'm glad they started having
Hold
a
on.
campaign about, that in the black neighborhood,
Wow.
That stuff was just killing people.
I'm telling you. The story of success.
Teenagers that were like alcoholics drinking that mess.
Right. I mean, they sold it cheap so everybody could afford it.
That's right.
Exactly.
Right around with
That's like the bottom of the barrel. That's like the bottom of the barrel beer where all the garbage is at. That's what they make malt liquor out of.
Wow.
Like,
crazy.
Garbage barley, whatever's left over.
Yeah, they got rich off us in the 80s off that malt liquor.
Yeah, when they sold it, and they sold it, and they saw it in all the movies that we watched.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams.
Oh yeah.
You
don't let the smooth taste fool you.
Yeah, I mean, Billy D had to become a multi-millionaire for Coke 45.
That's right. That's right.
So that's when they started using our stars, and at the time as well to sell that poison.
Right. And remember, they did the same thing in the 90s. Remember how they came out with St. Eyes?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Like and all of them.
You're absolutely right.
St. Eyes. And I got to be honest, I was 15. With my friends and getting older people to go in liquor stores to get us our little cherry St. Eyes. And we thought we were cool. You know what I mean? It was the thing to do. Huh?
St. Eyes with the crooked eye, right?
Yes. Flavor, I remember that. But like you said, they would get our celebrities to promote it. We would look at it. We would want to emulate, our celebrities.
They understand.
And so, like you said, they made billions of dollars.
They understand
off of selling malt liquor to African American people.
They understand the marketing. That they're marketing.
Absolutely. Now, look, I wanna move on because I know you got to get ready to go, T, in a few minutes. I just want to mention on page 319, and I'm gonna skim through the next probably three or four pages. On page 319, he's talking about the basic foundations of Korean economic success and their political transformation. He says that the basic foundations of Korean economic success and political transformation are the Korean-centered organizations. So that's the key word. They have Korean-centered organizations. All right. Now, and with these organizations, what they do is promote, the ethnic unity, identity, and consciousness. All right, among the Koreans. So he gives a bunch of examples. At the bottom, he talks about this KAGNY, CAGNY organization, and he says that their mission, they have a special mission to create and maintain the unity of the Korean community. Okay, so they have these organizations that promote unity and group consciousness among the Koreans. Okay, because you got to remember that you need group identity, you need a group consciousness, right, in order to have a successful economical and social system, right, which will garner you political power or help you to amass social power. That's what I was looking for. So then he talks about this one particular organization called CAGNY, all right, and their special mission is to create and maintain the unity of the Korean community. And it says, as the chief social and political organization designed to meet the needs of the Korean community and to mediate relations between Korean New Yorkers and other ethnic minorities in that city. All right. It says that they sponsor cultural unity concerts, conflict and mediation training, and a college to teach English to immigrants, guidance for socially disadvantaged, voter registration, and minority scholarship opportunities. All right. And then he goes on to talk about, and I'm on page 320, he says, buying the Black community cheap. He said that they used our politicians. So for example, they used Reverend Sharpton. It says that they used him to come on in and to give an invocation at one of their annual awards meetings, right? So they used him. Dr. Amos Wilson has another section called Pinning the Tail on the Donkey, Korean public relations efforts in the Black community. So he says that they sponsor spots of Black radio stations honoring heroes like Thurgood Marshall. They've set up scholarship programs. They've donated produce to feed the homeless in New York. They've employed more non-Koreans. Okay, so these are the different tactics,
right,
that they in order. operate comfortably. So in order to operate without resistance, you get what I'm saying? So they say, no, we do feed the homeless. And they may have a black guy or black girl working in the Korean store, right? So all of these things are done to appease us so they can continue to exploit us. Exactly. And suck the wealth out of our community. All right. So it says that
question on I had a discussion, and a gentleman said that most of our businesses in this community and have Asian owned don't have near black workers. So do you think it's just enough to hire black workers?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely, it's not. That's not enough for me. These are just different. I was just listening to tactics that they employ, to keep us, to keep us silent, to pacify us. Right.
What would be suitable in your
Nothing. I think that if it's a black neighborhood, I think that the businesses in that neighborhood should be black owned. So nothing. I don't think we should have any foreign merchants or alien merchants.
Because in their neighborhoods, there's no stores that are owned by us or anybody else.
That's definitely, you're absolutely right.
And Brother T, you're going to see what I'm getting ready to do in Baltimore. We're trying to pull our resources together as we speak, because what I want to do is set up shop right across from one of them and show people that this is how you buy back the neighborhood. This is what you do. You shut them out. And I want to do that right here in Baltimore. So we're going to speak offline about that. We're going to speak offline about that. Because I tell brothers and sisters, when we get mad at the Asians, we walk around and we boycott and we shut them down for a few days until we get what we want. But we have to upgrade our thinking at this point. Don't boycott, replace. You get what I'm saying? At this point, we need not to be boycotting these businesses. We need to be replacing them, shutting them down indefinitely and replacing them with black-owned businesses.
And also make sure that we target and put pressure on our supposed to be selective officials, because I live in a neighborhood that I live 1 block away from the senator, but in that same next to the senator's office is a Chinese restaurant, and Hip Hop Chicken is around the corner, and there's a Arab liquor store. So we have a black official who live the office in our neighborhood, but there's no black businesses nowhere to be found. No representation. So I had the nail on the head, Dr. Maat.
That's right. That's right. I just went online and looked up Chu and what he has expanded. If you look up CHU apostrophe S, I was just looking how far since I left Savannah, how he expanded. He got grocery stores and marts all over Savannah now. Incredible. Incredible. Yeah, I just put him up in Google. I knew him personally. I remember he had 2 stores. Now I'm looking at it. Now he got about 7 stores now. Yeah. Markets, gas stations. I knew him when he only had 2.
Growing.
But he was a millionaire for that, because those were big markets. And you had long lines when you went to those grocery stores because they were right in the heart of the black community. So he stayed busy. Those stores stayed busy, and this whole family works there. He don't hire no blacks, nobody black that work there. Not even the cashiers. All his family members work that whole business.
Wow. Awesome.
So it says right here that in 1993, September 1993. They launched a Black Korean mediation project. All right. So this is, again, another attempt to appease us, to keep us, to pacify us. It says that the project is designed to strengthen Black and Korean communication and cooperation by bringing together volunteers from both communities to serve as mediators who will co-mediate interracial and intercultural disputes. All right. He gives an example. He says that in Chicago, there was a Black woman that was employed by the Korean business community to monitor and critically evaluate Korean Black market relations and consult with Korean merchants with respect to improving their customer relations, as well as improving their rather poor business image. The consultant also functions as a liaison between the Korean merchants and the Black community by acting to forestall or quietly resolve disputes between the two. It says in a major diplomatic initiative, the South Korean federal government extended an invitation. So they extended an invitation to welcome an African-American congressional delegation, which visited the country, it says, in August of 1993. All right. So they even brought over our delegates, okay, to Korea. And it says during this trip, ostensibly designed to launch a systematic, ongoing effort aimed at improving communications between Korean Americans and African Americans, and at initiating trade exchange. The Black Congressional Caucus delegation participated in a 2-hour seminar entitled How to Promote Harmony Between Korean Americans and African Americans. Members of the delegation reportedly explored the development of retail chain outlets for Korean electronic or other products to be jointly owned by Korean Americans and African Americans. Now, this was an attempt in 1993. Of us can name a joint venture, right, between the Korean Americans and the African Americans. So then Dr. Amos Wilson goes on to talk about, he has a section called Killing Me With Your Love. He says that the breadth and depth of Korean public relations initiatives toward the African American community, he said they are impressive. The reason for these initiatives is obvious: to ease and camouflage the continuing and growing Korean commercial exploitation of the Black community, to maintain their dominance of its economic markets along with other non-Black merchants, and to export its wealth and thereby impoverish it, while pretending that such is not the case, by deceiving its constituents with cunning public relations techniques, manipulating the conditioned needs of many Blacks to be treated kindly by non-Blacks, to be respected, socially acknowledged, and accepted by non-Black, needs conditioned into them the long history and nature of white oppression, needs apparently far greater than their own, to own and control their own marketplaces, control their own economic destiny, and to pass on an economic legacy to their children. The Koreans are frenetic, selling Blacks the sizzle instead of the steak. The public relations campaigns, and worse still, their transparent lobbying and buying of Black elected officials, the blatant attempt to use those representatives to advance Korean interests at the expense of African American interests by making vague promises to enter into joint ventures with African American business persons, are insultingly designed to beguile the African American community into stupidly aiding and abetting its own economic exploitation and retardation. All right. So Dr. Amos Wilson ends this section by saying that the African American community must resist and overthrow its conditioned, addictive need to be loved by other ethnic groups. And this goes into what you were saying.
Say that again.
This is what you said earlier, Sister Camille. You was like, we just got to become more, you said inclusive or exclusive, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because we just letting all open arms and they my brother, they my sister, all that mess. Come on, man. Please, these people have a and you know, we be believing we be drinking the Kool-Aid, man.
Absolutely.
Because of our low racial self-esteem.
And that's what he's saying, that we have an addiction to needing to be loved by other people, right? He says to the extent that they can exploit its commercial and economic potential. And that's so true. I watch how the Arabs come into the community, and as long as they're nice to the people that come in and they can speak your language and they're cool with you, you go and keep spending your money, right? And then you give them a pass. You give them the black pass.
Meanwhile, they got Africans enslaved over there in their countries.
Right. So we give them the black pass because we feel like they identify with our culture, or because we feel like they accept us. We give them the black pass, right?
We give them endearing names. We even give them, we call them mama. Hey, mama. I've seen that happen in some of the stores here and our warehouses. I'm like, mama?
Right.
You call her mama? Do she come back and call you son? I'm like, I never seen this in my life, how we try to, you know, be so inclusive with someone who don't want to be near you.
Right.
I'm wondering if that slave man can be almost genetic. Is it in our DNA to such a level? Ooh. You know?
I haven't seen the scientific papers yet, but I don't doubt it.
That's in some of our DNA so deep. than some of us.
Well, you know, we're targeted for that. That's all in the propaganda. They're always, you know, everything is about multiculturalism and people of color. That's why I'm subscribed to that people of color thing. Like, I'm not a people of color. I have a history and legacy here.
That's right.
I'm not an immigrant.
And nobody practices multiculturalism but us. Only people practice multiculturalism is black people.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're taught all that old mumbo jumbo.
Right.
We be jumping off, campaigning, and you know,
perfect example.
Bed
I'm shopping
and bed bucking. Oh.
I'm shopping yesterday with my daughter, and I had to go. I had to go to the store to to get a money order. And my daughter says, "I want a doll." I'm like, Lord, every time we go somewhere, I gotta buy a doll. So we walked past the doll aisle, and she saw a baby alive doll. And I said, "Oh my goodness!" She says, "Daddy, I want that." I said, "It was a white doll." I said, "No, no white dolls coming in this house." And as soon as I said that, a black woman looked at me like in disgust. And I looked at her like, I said, "I guarantee you that a white family don't have a black doll in their house."
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
So I asked the representative, the store.
That is part of the brainwashing. The white dolls.
So I went to the store agent and I said, "Excuse me, I need to have a black baby alive doll." And he said, "It's right down there." He pointed the way, because they only showed the white baby alive dolls on the shelf, but they had another area that they had the little babies, the other black child dolls, like tucked away almost in Walmart. So
right.
You know, I bought it because my daughter, you know, that's what she asked for, and so I said, but it just stuck in my head how that my black sister looked at me when I said I want my daughter to have a black doll. And she looked at me like as if it should be okay for her to have a white doll.
She probably got white Jesus all over the house.
Right.
Absolutely. No, I've had family members who told me that it's okay to have, you know, white dolls in the house. I mean, literally, I got a cousin that went out when Frozen came out, and she ran out and she bought all kinds of Frozen stuff for her child. And I'm like, you don't get it, do you? Like, you know, and that's why I always recommend that parents read the book by Dr. Amos Wilson, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. We have to understand how toys, games, television, how those things impact our children psychologically. We don't get it. We just look at it as it's just a toy. Oh, it's just a toy. It's just a game. It's just television. But we have to understand, you know, what's going on with our babies psychologically. You get what I'm saying? How these toys, games, and television shows impact our babies psychologically. And Dr. Amos Wilson was vehemently against giving our children white superheroes and white dolls, okay, as toys and as superhero images. All right. I
agree with you, sister. I agree with Dr. Amos Wilson on that.
Absolutely.
And we lost a powerful elder to him.
Oh my goodness. Yes. But I wanted to add, I wanted to finish reading this paragraph. Okay, so he said that we got to basically get over our need to be loved. All right, because he's saying that they use that to exploit, they use that to exploit us, right? And it says, even if their love was genuine, the community is in no way obliged to impoverish itself, neglect and abuse its children, literally sacrifice its physical and psychosocial body, politic, all right, or politic. It says by giving away its wealth, right, in a Faustian bargain. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, with the devil to gain that love. The African-American community's dedicated use of its wealth to maintain the employment, health, and welfare of its members and its children, to socially and economically improve itself through the preservation and use of its resources as allocated through its own social, cultural, and economic institutions, should have absolutely little to do with permitting Korean or other communities free and full access to its marketplaces, only to economically exploit it while smiling, pretendingly to love it. All right, so I'm getting ready. Dr. Amos Wilson is getting ready to show you exactly how much these Koreans love you. And actually, I believe Brother Travis gave a great example earlier when he said how when we wanted to start a little Africa in Detroit, how the Arab merchants and the Asian merchants came together to stop that from happening because they knew that they would lose the wealth. They knew that they would lose the customer base. Okay, and that's exactly what happened in New York in 1993. So let's get into that. So in the New York Times in 1993, it says that the Koreans, all right, that they organized to use the strength of their numbers and their wealth to try to increase their political influence. In New York City, it says the Times further reported that on a political level, the Korean immigrants are banding together to push their concerns by voting as a bloc in this year's 1993 mayor election. So it says I'm at the top of page 324, and we have 5 more pages after this, and I think like 2 of the pages aren't even highlighted. But it says that the Times reported that Korean business owners also have on their political agenda the squashing of a city plan for zoning changes that would allow bigger food stores into the city, as well as lobbying the city council to crack down on illegal food vendors. So you know that in New York, especially on 125th Street, you had a lot of Black people who were food vendors on 125th Street. So the Koreans were saying, let's crack down, let's start passing laws to crack down on these illegal food vendors, because they felt like these food vendors were taking their money, promising to deliver at least 6,000 votes to the mayor candidate. Ending seems best. All right. So the president, this is the president speaking of the Korean American Grocer Association of New York and his organization. It says that they are seeking to force the city to crack down on illegal vendors and more tightly regulate legal ones. This demand presents a special irony since a very large number of vendors the association wishes to run out of business or to severely restrict are those of African origin, having to vend in the streets for a living as a result of Korean and other ethnic groups' monopoly of the stores in the communities where their customers are almost 100% Black. This is the final payback for the tremendous financial support the Black community has given the Korean community over the years, a community which has chosen not to reside among its customers, nor has given generously to support its social institutions, a community which was the beneficiary of great human and monetary sacrifices made to the African Americans to protect their liberty during and after the Korean War. Such are the benefits and fruits of economic organization and resulting clout. So the very same people that support them, Black people, they wanted to run Black people off of the street, Black people who were food vendors on the street.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember when they swept the streets, man.
Yeah,
it swept, and that's why you got on 160, you know, try to make up for what they did. You know, they made that market on 116th Street, and it's, you know, but yeah, it was crazy. You know, you had people out there. You know, that was the only way they fed their families, and they had the police out there, so they couldn't set up anymore. I mean, before my thing shut off, I wanted to, Korean grocer, she shot a 15-year-old girl in the back of the head.
I remember that.
She accused her of stealing. The girl hadn't stolen anything. So the girl was like, you know, she kept, you know, the grocer was fighting her, and the girl clocked her. Bow! And when she clocked her, she shot her in the head, a 15-year-old.
I think I somewhat remember. I think I vaguely remember.
I remember that. I do remember that
incident.
Yeah, that was in L.A.
I remember that.
And how long ago was this, Sister Camille?
That was in the 90s. 93, 96, something like that.
Yeah, it was 93, 96.
And what was the community's reaction? You said 93, 96. So we looking at, I was about 12 or 15. So what was the reaction? Because I think
I think all this stuff, this was before Rodney King. So all these things that were happening to Black people at the time, as far as going into stores and being followed. Every time you would go in their stores and they will follow you around. That's why I stopped going in them. give you my money, and you know, you're gonna be following me around. That's ridiculous. The minute you walk in the store, they like lockstep with you. Like, I'm like, well, I remember one time I said, well, can I look? You know, it's just ridiculous. So I don't. That's why I don't support any of their businesses.
I don't blame you, sis. Same here.
Yeah, that's kind of all those things that happen, that shooting and the other people following you around, and just the disrespect is also what sparked that whole thing in LA. You know, when that verdict came down, that was just too much, and it just,
you know, and they don't realize they in jeopardizing themselves, because you got people who are time bombs in the Black community. You know,
right?
A good example that same situation happened. We had a bakery here in Detroit where they were very disrespectful to Black people going into that bakery. One day, the wrong fool came in there, and he got in a verbal confrontation with the people at the bakery. Came in there and shot and killed everybody in there.
Oh,
right here in Detroit. Sure did. Guy came back with a gun, a couple of guns, and shot and killed everybody in that bakery. Killed all them white folks.
Hey,
but they had a history. I stopped going in there because Black people were saying that, you know, they really disrespectful, you know, and they try to talk to you any kind of way. People like them hot cookies, you know, they smell good from outside. You can smell them outside, and you know, those bakeries. But they were very rude to Black people. But one day, she got in a verbal confrontation with a nut, and he came in there and killed all of them white folks up in there.
Hey.
And so, like you said, we like ticking time bombs.
That's right.
You know, it's and like you said, they got the right one that day.
That's right. You know, in Detroit, all over. You see what I'm saying? You got people who have been unemployed for a long time, angry, bitter. You know what I mean? Can't find work, and you know, you got some time bombs around here.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And you talking to people like, you know, like you done lost your mind.
That joker came back with a car. I think he had a pistol and a rifle, and came in there. And he put all of them down in there.
Hey.
But going back to what happened on 125th Street, this example that Dr. Amos Wilson gave us in the book, this was an example of communal self-preservation. Okay, so they saw what was going on. They saw that Black vendors were making money, and look what happened. They band together, right? Because they said, no, we want to keep this wealth, you know, circulating, you know, in our hands, or circulating, or pouring into our community. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop them, right, in order to preserve ourselves. That is called, so it kills me when brothers and sisters talk about self-preservation, because it seems like when we talk about self-preservation in the Black community, we speak about it from a personal sense instead of like a communal sense. You get what I'm saying? All right. But anyway, it says I'm at the top of page 327. We only have 1.5 more pages left. Well, actually 2 pages left. It says Black entrepreneurs are outsiders in their own markets, as alien merchants in markets dominated by black consumers. Non-Blacks in the stores taking the lion's share of Black consumer dollars, and Black vendors on the street picking up the change. This is the case in virtually all Black communities, and in communities where Blacks own a significant portion of the buying power in North America, and in the Black nations in Central and South America, the Caribbean Basin, Africa, and the Pacific Islands. It should be obvious that if the worldwide African community is to achieve economic self-sufficiency and self-respect, if it is to wield sufficient political and economic power to protect its vital interests and to enhance its quality of life, then its current economic posture relative to other ethnic groups in its midst and with whom it does business must be radically reversed. Okay. Now, Dr. Amos Wilson published this book, or wrote this book, you know, 22 years ago. And it seems we're slowly but surely trying to reverse this condition. But, you know, I don't.
We lost Dr. Maya.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we can't lose her.
There you go. She back.
Yeah, she did. What page are we on?
I was going
327.
You guys hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
You know.
Okay, whew. Okay, cool. So we're at the bottom of page 327. He's talking about globalization, and he says while globalization is occurring at a breathtaking pace, so is regionalization, right? The joining of nations, often ethnically and culturally related, to form regional trade blocs and associations for advancing and protecting the economic self-interest of their members. Currently organized around 3 regional centers: Western Europe, North America, and East Asia. All right. He goes on to say that Central and South America are in the process of organizing. There is the probability that the nations which form the region will become full members of the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. It says, note the intra-regional trade and finance are increasing at the moment in spite of the overall globalization of trade and finance. This means that in a global universe, intra-group, intra-regional, intra-communal economic organization is of the greatest importance. All right. So he's even saying that even in this age of globalization, regionalization is still on the rise, right? And he's saying this 22 years ago.
Right. Nationalism, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't have anything else highlighted on this page except the bottom, which is like the last 2-3 sentences. In light of the sweeping changes in the national, regional, and international economies, African American communities, nations, and regions can no longer permit their economies to be owned and exclusively exploited, and their resources to be disemboweled by outsiders whose only interest in them is to suck them dry of their lifeblood. So this is all I have for tonight, y'all. Did anybody want to add anything to those 2 last pages, or did you guys want to continue, or we done?
I did want to read. I thought this was very important on 325, if you don't mind.
Let's go back. All right.
At the bottom, it says a sweeping thank you note. On Monday, October 17th, 1994, over 400 uniformed police officers, some in riot gear and others on mounted horses, some deployed as undercover officers and others as public relations personnel, combined to demonstrate a massive show of force and callously swept all street vendors from 125th Street in Harlem. Operating at the behest of the New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, elected officials, the police proceeded to arrest some 26 vendors and place the street under military occupation. The police state, which effectively is
as the police state, which effectively established its presence all day along 125th Street, adjoining Avenue, was posted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was in its 3rd week as this note is written, and 15 months hence. Thus far, no solution which will allow the return of the vendors or some portion of them to 125th Street has been reached. Sister Camille, she back?
No, she's not back, but I know she wanted to drive home the point that
125th Street is 125th Street where Sinata is? Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
So they're back, and I guess he was, he wrote this book, 20 years ago.
Right.
So at that particular time, I guess the streets were kind of dry, but they're back now in 2017. Like I've been in New York several times in the last couple of years, and the black vendors are back. But I guess during at the time of this publication, once they did the sweep, you didn't see a lot of black vendors, I guess, in Harlem on 125th for a while. But they're back. They're back now on 125th. So we got to definitely keep in mind that this book was written 22 years ago.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
No problem.
You good, sis.
But I guess just to summarize it, they were Dr. Amos was just speaking about how out of renting the storefronts blocks of 125th Street, and these buildings were owned by white and non-black landlords. So yeah. So they kind of like another thing that the term he likes to use is that they've got us locked and boxed. out of the money, and they've been having us locked out of the money. You know, guys, that we can't. I think we pay too much attention to the media and the propaganda that is, you know, put out there, and you know, like little tidbits of things for us to, you know, pacify us and for us to partake in, which really amounts to nothing. It's just a bunch of symbolism. You know, it doesn't do anything for our community or our people as a whole. And we have to become smarter than that as a group of people and know when we're being used, you know, for other people's, you know, it's like being almost like a whore. Woo!
I agree.
Sure. That's true. It's hard.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
You're like a $5 whore. You know, it's,
you know.
I wonder, sis, if you know, I'm looking at the top of page 326, and I see what you're saying, where Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that the prime real estate, it says on the street, the real estate is primarily owned by whites and other non-blacks. Like you know, I'm wondering, is that true today?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it's still true today. Okay.
Well, now it's owned by big business. I mean, they turned it. They almost look like Fifth Avenue over there. Banana Republic. You got all those major chain stores. There's hardly any more mom and pop shops like there used to be when I grew up. The only mom and pop that you really see, there's a few, but it's just the street vendors.
That's gentrification for you.
Scarletta, Blue Pill, Red Pill, all those guys. You know, the vendors. You know, Ifendushi. You know.
Yeah, he's been there a long time.
So,
Ifendushi.
Yeah. But as far as who owns those, it's big business now, man. That's why they raised the rents up on them so they couldn't afford it anymore. And you know, they brought in Banana Republic and Applebee's and you name it.
So now that real estate is
whatever large chain stores, you know, you could think of, they own 125th Street now.
Okay. All right, y'all. Well, we're going to get ready to close out. Next week, we're going to finish up chapter 14. It's a long chapter.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a long chapter. I think this chapter is about, you know, 60 pages. But, you know, with Dr. Amos Wilson, 60 pages are like pages. But you got to like double or triple that number. But anyway, we'll try to finish up second half of, because I think we got through maybe 35–40% of the chapter. So we'll try to finish up.
We ended off at 3:30, correct?
We ended at 3:29. Yeah.
3:29.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll try to finish up. I think the last page is what, 367?
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll try to finish up, you know, next week. Tell people where to find you, panel. Sister Camille, where can we find you?
Yes, family. You can find me at www.camillegainerjones.com. That's you can find my CDs and my instructional DVD there. You can also find me on my page, Truth to Power. Truth, the number 2 power. That's where I post all my crazy political stuff. You know, all the real info. And you know, I have a regular page as well under my name. But yes. So, and also on Twitter, I'm at Real Drumette. And again, it's an awesome opportunity to be on this, to sit on this panel every week and share this information and to learn myself. Ashe to everyone, and thank you for tuning in.
Power, sister, power.
Yes, indeed.
Brothers, where can we find you?
Hey, Johnson Toe. You can find me on Facebook. Tiwolo Johnson. That's on my Facebook. I'm attempting a podcast called Connect the Dots on the Anchor app real soon. So I'll give you details on that as well. And that's just an opportunity for me to speak, give interviews, and just speak my mind on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And just to find me every Sunday here. Thank you to this wonderful panel. And I'm still learning. I appreciate everyone's input.
You can Peace Family here. You can contact me at Shemsu Netcher on Facebook. I mean, this everybody in the Black community should be part of this group here. This is a powerful weapon that we got in our hands with some powerful minds, and I'm just happy to be with the community. Hotel.
Hotel, brother.
I say, brother.
Well, you can email me at dr.maat.msu.com. I can be found under Deanna Bailey. Please visit edanimeproductions.com to support the Meltrek movement. All right, we have to take back, we have to start controlling what our children watch. Okay, I mean, earlier in the show, we were talking about indoctrination, and there are different forms or different tools of indoctrination. You know, the school system is one of the major tools, religion is a major tool, and media is a major tool of indoctrination. So we as a people had to control what our babies are watching. So turn off Disney, turn off Nickelodeon, turn off Cartoon Network, go to your search engine, Google Meltrek, M-E-L-T-R-E-K. Okay, Mel is short for melanin, Trek means journey. So we're taking you on a culture to understand the history of the people. We currently have 2 episodes available, and the trailers for both episodes are on YouTube. All you got to do is go to YouTube, in the search bar, type in Meltrek episode 1 trailer. All right, I was going to play it for you, but I'm not. I'm just want to show you that it's here. You know, so you have Meltrek episode 1 trailer. All right, and then we also have the Meltrek episode 2 trailer available. Okay, so we gotta control the images that we expose our babies to. Anthony T. Browder, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, even Dr. Amos Wilson, they've all said that he who controls the image controls your self-esteem and your self-worth. You know, so we have to, begin to control the images that we expose our children to. So just visit edanimeproductions.com. I'm telling you, as soon as you type in Meltrek in the search bar in Google, our website will come up. If you want to check out the trailers prior to buying the DVDs, just head on over to YouTube, type in Meltrek, and it'll come up. And I just want to bring this to you guys' attention. You see how I have 500 and 200 thumbs down? A white supremacist group found out about Meltrek, and they attacked our page. I spent hours going through and deleting the comments. You know, we were called niggers. Ed Anime Productions. Wow. Ed Anime Productions was accused of teaching fake history or inaccurate history to children. We were accused of lying to children. We were called a zero contribution race. And so initially I was going to leave the comments up there so that people could see, what we've been going through, just to produce, the type of feedback that we've been getting from non-African people. But then a part of me said, well, children also come to our page, look at our stuff. So I don't want them to see, those negative comments. So I spent hours going through and deleting comments, and there's still one up here. It's rather old.
Man, you should have screenshot them and posted them on your Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. Look at this. This is from a year ago, and I was going to delete this. Look at this. He said, "We was kings and shit." Applies. Someone said that's right. Someone says, "Oh, that's a salty cracker." Yeah, niggas, these, So I'm gonna go through and delete. I thought I got all of them, but some of them still here. So what they did was they attacked our page and gave us a bunch of. They started sharing the video to thumbs down, and so then what I went into our YouTube page and started blocking some of these white supremacists. So family, go to Meltrek episode 1 trailer. Give your sister a thumbs up, man, to combat these white supremacists thumbs down. So anyway, obviously we're doing something right anytime they felt the need.
That's right.
So it is what it is. But please join us next week for Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club. As Brother Shemsu stated, all Black people should be book club. And we're going to be reading some powerful books. Right now we're reading, The Blueprint for Black Power. And this book may have been, intimidating to some folks. This was our very very first text. And so a lot of folks may have got discouraged from joining the book club. But you know, this is a serious group, and we are serious about, you know, or reestablishing the African mind. We are serious about decolonizing the African mind. So this is a serious book club. All people need to be in it.
Yes.
I wish everybody a safe and productive week. Hotep and Black Power.
Black Power.
Black Power.
Black Power.